Hello guys, you're welcome yet again to another video. Now let's get straight into what we have today, and we're going to be continuing from the last video. So to convert this image to base 64, we're going to attach an onChange event here. All right, and our onChange event here is going to say, we're going to say this.file transform. So what we have to do is, we want to transform this file to base 64 string. So we are going to do that here, but first of all, before we do that, we'll have to write a function, all right, that is going to help us handle that. So I'm going to call this function, basically that's going to help us with the conversion. I'm going to call this function get base 64, and our get base 64 method takes two things. It takes a file and then it takes the callback. So let's just call this callback. Okay, and missing something here. Oh, sorry guys, I was actually trying to use fat arrow function, but in order for me to use fat arrow function, that means I'll have to do it this way. So yep, all right. So now we have our get base 64 function, and what we are going to do now is we're going to use the file reader API, HTML5 file reader API, and we're going to say, let me call this reader, which is equal to new file reader. Yes, new file reader. And what we can do from here is we are now going to say, we're going to add an event listener here, unload of this. So anytime there's an unload called on this, what we can then do is we are going to return, we're going to call that callback method here, and the callback method is then going to take our reader, basically the results gotten from our reader, from our file API, from the HTML5 file API reader. And once we have passed this in our callback, we can then return the data URL. So we're going to say reader, I think it should be read as data URL. Yes, read as data URL. So this is going to basically take a blob and then convert the blob to base 64 encoded string. So what we're going to pass here is going to be the file. Okay, so now that we have written this function here, so let me drop a little comment here and say this: convert a blob type image to base 64 encoded string to base 64 encoded string. And now once we are done with this, we can now basically get straight into our function here, file transform, which is going to help us in transforming our file. So we're going to say, I forgot that this is not a functional component. So file transfer, all right, we're going to pass the event here, and then we are going to say, we're going to get our base 64 function. This is the get base 64, and it takes the file, and it also takes the callback. So our file is going to be e.target.files, and since we are working with just a single file, we're going to target the first index, which is 0. So e.target.file, and our second parameter is basically going to be this here, which is going to be our callback function. And our callback function is going to take a parameter, or we're going to pass a parameter into it, and let's just call that our base 64 string. So what we can then do is we are going to map this, our profile image state here, to the value of our base 64 encoded string. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to say this dot state dot profile image, and this will now be equal to the base 64 encoded string. And then if I console.log this dot state, right, and I save that, and now I get back to my browser, and let me just go to the console. So now let's head over to the console, and now if I select this image, open that, you can see here that you can see the value of profile underscore image is returning the base 64 encoded string of that image. It's returning the base 64 encoded string of that image. Okay, so once we have the base 64 encoded string of the image, What we can then do is we are then going to trigger on this our handle submit event here. We are going to get the value of all the values in our text input. So basically, we are going to get all the values in our text input, including our profile image here. We are also going to get the value too, and then we are now going to console.log that. So what I'm going to do now here is I'm going to say handle submit, and handle submit function. The first thing we want to do is to prevent any default behavior. So we're going to use the event property here. I'm going to say event.prevent default, and this just prevents any default behavior from the browser. We are going to say console.log this.state. Okay, and we're going to save that now. And now let's just get back, and it tells us use of event y. Okay, sorry guys, this is supposed to be e. So let's save that and let's get back. And now if I if I try to do this, it's going to ask us these fields are required. So let me just enter first name of Bradford, last name of Refix, email of Refix, at mail or at Gmail or Hotmail or mail, gmail.com, and the phone number would be something like this, just a random number. And now we're going to select an image, and if I click on, let me just clear my console. If I click on add contact, you're going to see it passes the email, it passes the first name, the last name, the phone number, and it also passes the base64 encoded image, base64 encoded string of the image. So what we can now do is we are going to send all these details down to the server, which is here already. So I have already served our Laravel application, and yep, I have already served it here. PHP artisan serve here. We're going to pass this particular state. We're going to pass it down to our actions, and these actions are going to be dispatched. First off, we're going to need to import, of course, one of the most important things for Redux here is going to be the connect higherorder component, and we are going to import connect from react-redux. Let's create a new service here, and we're going to call that service contact service. So contact service.js, and for our contact service, we are going to basically import our HTTP service here, and I'd like to use this sign up event here. All right, let me just be sure. Yep. So let's have that pasted in here. So I'm going to change this from sign up service, and I'm going to change this to add new contact. And add new contact simply passes the credentials, which are sort of like, say, the username. The credentials will just enter the name, the email, or the base64 encoded string. And it also passes the URL. So what I'm going to do now is I want to check the URL. So let's go to API, and we're going to check out the URL for contact/add, which is, so here, contact/add. So now let's get over here, and now let's change this to contact/add. So here we are, contact/add. Let's change this to not sign up. Let's change the name to let new contact. All right, so let new contact be that, and here we are going to change this to new contact. All right guys, so now we have set up our HTTP service. The next thing we are going to be setting up now is going to be our actions. So I'm going to create a new action here, and this action is going to be called contact actions.js. What we are going to do in contact actions is we're going to import, and this our import is going to come. So I'm going to import add new contact, and I'm sure it's add new contact to call it, right? So contact servers, add new contact here. So I'm going to import add new contact, and this is going to come from So let's see, from services, and this is going to come from contact service. And we are going to create an action here, and we want to export this. So we're going to say export add contact user, and add contact user to be another function. Okay, so here we are in our add context and in our add contact user basically. And our add contact user is going to be using our add new contact service. So we'll need to return here, and we are going to return our dispatch to call our add new contact service. And our add new contact service takes the credentials as a parameter. And in our add contact user actions, we're going to be passing the credentials here. And so we're going to pass the credentials here. And now that we have passed the credentials, since that method is returning a promise, we are going to say, oh, it's a promise, we're going to use the .then method here. And we're going to get our response. Basically, we're going to do the same thing that we did here. So instead of me going on typing that, let me just copy this from here to here. And let me just paste that in here. And we're going to change this to, and we're going to change this instead of having to repeat myself again to save me time. I'm going to change this add new contact. So we're passing the credentials to then and then the response. And we're going to change this from sign up success to say new contact. So new contact success, and here is going to be new contact error, and we're going to say new contact code error, just to be specific, so that we can know exactly where any bug pops up if it does pop up. And here we are not setting any token, so we are going to just get rid of you, and you as well, and you too. So now that we have set up our service, we have also set up our actions too. So the next thing that we are going to do now is we're going to go down into our add contacts, and we'll need to make use of our actions here. So what we are going to do now is we're going to import add contact user, and this is going to come from, let's start routing there, and this is going to come from store actions and contact actions. So here we have it. We have imported our actions into our component. Now it's time for us to make use of our actions. Now, in order for us to make use of our actions, we will have to use the connect higher order component to kind of like say bind that particular function as a property of this component, so that we can be able to use this.props, the name of the method. So here we are going to head straight down here. So we're going to wrap this component around the connect higher order component, but before we do that, we are going to map dispatch to props, because we are basically dealing with the method here. So no suggestions. Map dispatch to props, and it's going to take the dispatch method. And for map dispatch to props, we want to return the list of events. So here we only have one action, or the list of actions, sorry, and that action is going to be the add contact user. So for the add contact user, we are going to pass the credentials. All right, so we are passing the credentials, and this is going to be mapped to the method that we are dispatching to this our component. So the method that we are going to be dispatching to our component is called add contact user, and we're going to pass the credentials. Okay guys, so having done our map dispatch to props, what we want to do next is let's create our map state to props, because we'll still need map state to props. Map state to props, and it's going to take the state So, and I made a mistake here by saying map state to props, return just nothing for now, and then we are going to go to export. So let's export our connect, and let's remove this export from here so that this remains class add contact. So we're going to export default, and our default connect is going to take the map state to props, all right, which we are still going to use later on for this particular component, and the map dispatch to props, and the name of the component, which is add contact, I believe. Okay, so now that we are all set, and let's change this to cred, not credentials. So now that we have succeeded in mapping our dispatch property of the function, or basically mapping our dispatching our actions and mapping it properly, and then also using the connector order component to kind of like make these properties available to this particular component, what we can now do is our response, and basically our response is going to come from our reducers. And for that reducer, which I am not sure we have created, we've actually created a contact reducer. So here, right here, and right now, what we are going to do is we are going to remove our initial state from being null, and our initial state is going to be contact response, and our initial value for contact response is going to be null, and the second one we're going to pass here is going to be contact message, and this is also going to be null. So we have our contact response and our contact message set as null. So what we can do here is to kind of like use a switch, passing the action the type, which we also did in our reducers. In our Auth reducer, we did the same. So I'm going to just copy this, and come here and paste that. So we're going to have a switch here, an action the type here, and our cases are going to be very similar with the case of our actions. And we have new contact underscore success, new contact underscore error. This is also new contact underscore code error. So we are going to start one after another here. So let us paste that here. So new contact success, and we paste that here. And the next is new contact error. So new contact error, and we are also going to paste that in here. Yep. So we have new contact success, we have new contact error, we have new contact code error. So we are going to add new contact code error here, and we're going to say case new contact code error, and we're going to console.log and say hello. We are going to return by destructuring the state, and we are going to auth response. So sorry guys, this is not supposed to be auth response, this is supposed to be contact response. So contact response. So let's change this to contact response. Now let's change this also to contact response. And so to be able to set our response messages, what I'm going to do is, let's get back here. Sorry. Let's get back here, and now let's go into our contact controller. And for our contact controller, let's see what our response messages are like for, let's say, add contact. And for add contact, we have a message, we have success. So I want to pick the message here. So we are going to say action.res dot. So action.res dot message, right? Yep. So action, let me see. Yes, dot message. So action.response.message, here is the message we are picking that from. So action.response.message, and then that is going to tell us, say, it went successfully. Else we're going to tell the user here saying, so we're going to say one, or we're going to say there seems to be a problem. Let's try again. And right down here, contact response is going to say error. Please, or let's just call this error code or something. All right. Now, why is that giving me an error? And now let's remove this comma here so we can fix that error. And why is there an error here? Oh, that's because we have not ended this particular function. So let's end that here, and now let's save that. And then we are going to get back to, let's also save this. See? So new contact code error, new contact success, new contact error, which is exactly what we have here. New contact success, new contact error, new contact code error. So let's get back to add contacts, and we are going to add that state, which of course is our global state. So what we are going to do now is we are going to say, I'm going to call DSA contact response, and contact response is going to be mapped to our state dot contact. Of course, if you go to our root reducer, we're going to see here that we have contact here. So we're going to say our global state dot contact response. All right, guys. So now that we have done this, so we have to display our contact message, of course, before we review that on our browser. So we're going to come over here right after this, right inside maybe here, our bold tag. We are going to right here, and we're going to say if our contact response is not equal to null, right, then we want you to display our contact response, else we want you to display null. Okay, I think that should do. So now let's save that, get over to our browser, and we are having a couple of errors here. First of all, it's telling us that our contact response is not defined, and that is because we have not extracted that from our props, from the props of this component, which has been supplied to us, this value here, from our global state. So and that has been mapped into our props by the help of our connect higher order component. So what we're going to do now is we are going to come down here, and we are going to destructure our contact response from our props. Save that. Now head back to our browser, and now we get another error, and this error is usually when you missed out on returning a default state. And yep, I was correct. So we're going to return a default here, and our default is going to be the state. And here we have an error because we are supposed to move this in here. Yes, so that's supposed to be within our switch statement. So now let's save that again. All right, and get back to our browser, and yep, everything looks good. So now let's save a new fellow here. Let's call him Frank Zitona. Let's give him a last name of Benjamin, an email of benjamin@gmail.com. Our phone number, just some random number. Choose a file, and now let's click on save. And when we click on save, what happens? Nothing. Good. And now nothing happens because we have not yet mapped this in our handle submit button. And what we just have to do now is we're going to say this dot. So we have to kind of map our props here, or basically we have to call our props here, which is this dispatch add contact user method here that takes the credentials value here, add contact here, add contact user method here that takes our credential values here. So we have to, that's been mapped to the prop, so we have to call that here and pass our state, the value of our state. So this is state, and save that now. And now let's get that again, and let's do demon@gmail.com. Let's just give some random digit phone number, and now let's select an image here. And if I click here, it tells us what cannot read property message of undefined, and we are going to go back here, and in our contact service, the reason for this error is because if I go back to my API right here, we're going to notice a couple of things. First of all, we have a namespace here called user, so it's supposed to be /user/contact/add, and so we have to come back here and change this to, and change the URL to your user/contact/add. And also the second problem also the second reason, or basically the second thing also we missed out on doing is this, is that if we go to our add contacts here, the parameters that we are passing to this add contacts props, which is the state, if we head back to our API, in our API we need, let me just go up here, you can see that we actually need the token here. The token is set to required, so we need the token. So in order for us to do that, what we can do is right in our contact service here, we can do something right now, and what we're going to do is really simple. We are going to say the credentials that has been passed, we want to credentials.token. So what we are doing is basically we are adding another token key pair to the object. So token would be local storage.get item, and the item would be the user. Okay, so we can save that, and now we head back here. Let's try to register a new user and let's see what happens. And phone number, and let's select an image. We have this image, click on add contact, and actually we have contact saved successfully, but we still get an error of message of undefined, and that is because let's just check our DB first to be sure that so you can see our contact saved successfully, but we are getting a message of undefined. So action.res.message, and it is telling us that message is undefined. And so to fix this error, we are going to notice here that we are only setting a type here, but we are not setting the response value. So I'm going to come back in here and just head straight back into our contact actions, and here is our mistake. We're going to copy this here, and we are going to paste that in here, and we are going to get rid of this. We're also going to go back to our service. Sorry, not our service. Let's save this first. But let's go back to our reducer, and there's no such thing. So let's get rid of this contact error because we have removed that. Now let's save this. Let's now get back to our browser, and it should work this time around. So let's do aaa@mail.com and phone number. Now let's select an image and click on add contacts. We have contact saved successfully. And if we head back to our DB and just click here, you're going to see our new contact, a@mail.com, with our phone number and all that details. So guys, that is this for this video. In the next video, we're going to be looking at how we can view all the contacts that we have added with search as well as pagination.